apart from the fact that he's a lovable rogue. Yeah. But I did ask him today to bring with him Mrs. Long for two reasons. Firstly, because we didn't believe that she existed, and we wished to make her welcome here, and secondly, to find out how on earth she keeps him under control. What about his achievements? Whilst at school, they soon noticed his early lack of promise. He was educated at St. Ignatius College one Wednesday afternoon. And by dint of lack of hard work, managed to gain distinction whilst at Loughborough. As a head of PE, he has managed to get away with spending his departmental capitation on more basketballs than I've ever seen in my life. As a head of department, he has achieved all-round curriculum development in the following areas: lower school basketball, upper school basketball, staff basketball, non-teaching staff basketball, and community basketball. He's the world's greatest wheeler and dealer in the field of basketball. I was asked to report back at the next sergeant meeting as to some of the good things that have happened to us since the school gained its grant-maintained status. The first thing that came to mind was Hump's way of saving money: basketball nets in the playground. As a senior head of department committed to extracurricular activity, he has the knack of knowing when the head teacher wishes to leave on time on a Friday afternoon. For example, lunchtime Friday, knock on door. Please sir, Mr. Long wanted me to tell you that he thinks I've broken my finger during the basketball practice and that I should have it x-rayed, and he's just gone off the Hackney Marshes. When you meet old Raymond, invariably the question is asked, is Mr. Long still there? He must be getting on a bit now. Or less politely, I thought he'd be past it by now. And then they go on to say, I remember when we played so-and-so school, a really great game, the score was, and they continue, and that was 29 years ago. This tells you that he has enriched so many lives of Radians over the years with his brilliance and talent, if not sheer genius, at training pupils for basketball. As an ex-head of a music department, I realised that if one is going to achieve excellence, such as Humphrey done, then it is down to sheer dedication. I think that one could go on listening to his successes with basketball, but of course there are other sides to him. He is a man of many parts, most of which you can't get anymore. He is an extremely bright man, the only head of department that I know who, when informed of an inspectorial visit, can produce schemes of work overnight which do not mention basketball. It would, however, be very interesting to watch him take next year's first year for dance, and how he could turn that into a basketball. I think that this is one of the main reasons that he's leaving, because he hasn't found the solution. Were he, however, to be staying, I'm sure he would do so. Perhaps basketball on ice, or perhaps even synchronized underwater basketball. One can't forget either the long, no pun intended, eminent partnership of Lowe's and Long, which sounds a bit like an introduction to a musical term. This partnership certainly put Rains in the forefront of all activities connected with physical education in the borough. And over 6 years ago, when I first made my visitor rounds, this was when I was teaching in Harringay, and I was delighted to see the extremely high profile that the PE department gave to equal opportunities and positive discrimination to the girls. The girls were taught here in the hall, where, as you know, there's excellent first-class facilities. The poor boys had to suffer in a tiny gym, all lessons being extremely cramped and one of the most difficult areas to teach in. I found it quite difficult to justify to the inspector why the girls had such excellent facilities. However, I was assured that this was by mutual agreement. Lowe's and Long work extremely well together, and I'm sorry that Anne has not been able to join us this evening. Well, Humphrey, in many ways it's an extremely sad day for us, for the staff, the pupils, the government, for old Raymond and many of East End schools. However, fortuitously, we are able to have him back, with hopefully even more time for him to use his coaching skills. He will have no more worries about forgetting to cancel coaches, sports days, schemes of work, or even wearing the pink tights for the dance lesson. Hump, if you're ever in trouble, I will be the first to dial 998. There is nothing small about this guy. He has a big heart, a big head, and tracksuit bottoms which he needs to wear a belt with. And before he speaks, I've heard that he's the Rolls-Royce of speakers. Well-oiled, almost inaudible, and goes on for a long time.
My salary includes that capitation. That's the best one you've ever made. Good. But it's at times like this that you try to remember all the other, if you ever listen to some of the other departure speeches in the past. And as Miss Julian so cogently said the other day, you always remember your first time. Belgian teacher I called Doc Lambert, I don't know if you remember him, but he spoke to us almost exclusively. It sounded like pidgin franglais French, and very much like the policeman in Hello, Hello. And then there was the Mr. Bruce Lockhart, sorry I can't remember his first name, who compared the playing of his backside and the Steinway very wittily in the school hall. And the traumatic consternation which was caused by Miss Stanton, who was the head of RS in a C of E school, to announce that she'd been transferred to the Vatican Club of Rome. But I have to keep my notes occasionally. But as you know, this is a very historic day, July the 14th. Time was shot. And when you think about it, I'm the last remnant of the all-boys school. Some of you may remember the all-boys school, the way in which we had an all-male staff room full of, some of you may not remember the pipe smoke, the sartorial elegance of suits, of blazers. And I'm sorry about the suit tonight, but my best tracksuit happens to be in the cleaners. And there were certainly no jeans, no women, and no t-shirts, and if anyone went in without a tie or whatever, they were certainly in trouble. And around this where I really heard about the things I call seats of learning, and all these padded seats around the staff room, and all these erudite professors were all sunk well into them, and any newcomer who dared to sit in one of those was certainly asking for trouble. Employed by the LCC, the ILEA, Tower Hamlets, Rains, LMS, LNER, GWR, everything. When I first arrived at Rains, it was quite a forbidding place. One of the things that was certainly there was the eponymous slipper. So called because in every cupboard, a teacher had a slipper. And a bit like the American Hurricanes, they were called Betsy or Doris or Mary. And they would come out only occasionally because obviously we were very, very well behaved. And obviously there were very, very many, good glances at the size of my shoes down here. And everyone thought, hey, this is a good bloke to have around with the big feet. But it was generally considered that a whippy 8.5 was much more effective than a very big, cumbersome 14. And I'll let my friends in the past consider that. So it was a painful place. My friend's predecessor, George Howard, actually said in his parting speech, he foretold the end of Rains because he castigated the grammar school system, and really it was quite a formal, a traditional place at that time, ruled really by ritual and all sorts of things like the sports days and other things which involved fun and games rather than Olympic calibre. And it wasn't really part of my edict or whatever to agree with him. So when I came here, my first idea was to make sure that he did not succeed. And there was a changeover from the formal traditional side to a more child-centred education, if you like, a more free, balanced education. And the successes that we we have were really due to a tremendous involvement of the young men and the young women. Because if you think of it, the boys at least had their game set up, they had their feed set up. The girls really were in the dark ages. And I'm sorry that Anne Rose isn't here tonight, because despite what the headmaster said tonight, she put a lot of time and effort into bringing the girls out of the dark ages, and their revolution was even greater than the boys. And although she's not here tonight, I'm sure that every tribute should be paid to the effort she made. Successes came in abundance, tremendous. From 1965, and I'm glad to see he's here tonight, Bob Simmons, our first basketball international, who also, I was delighted to say, went on to achieve eminence as a scholar at Cambridge University. Also in the same year, Tony Rush won the England School Intermediate Triple Jump, and the boys who joined me in the first year, that year of 1963 and 1968, they won the English Schools Basketball Championship, which since we've repeated 10 times. So you can see it has been going on, and all the money that the headmasters invested in basketballs and basketball stands has paid dividends. Terrible. The blind is about when you get to 77. That's right. Also, things like Ray Harris. I don't remember Raymond Harris, that great swimmer. He swam the channel one day, and then the next thing he came back and he actually swam 6 lengths against the staff in the staff versus pupils relay and won. Last weekend, as you may have heard, we won the championship against Lambeth in the basketball. But also, I was even more interested because I've been talking to Marvin Bramble, who's in the 4th year at the moment, an under 15 triple jumper, about Tony Rush. And I like the youngsters of today to get a kind of historical perspective of the way in which they are part of an ongoing tradition of success in sport and reigns. And lo and behold, on Sunday morning when I met him on our way to Crystal Palace, he told me he'd won exactly the same triple jump competition that Tony Rush, and I'm allowed by the language department to mention a little bit of deja vu in that situation. One of the highlights really was our winning of the Mile Carrying Championship. This is an athletic competition which is open to athletics. Athletics. All the teams in the country, and once, not just once but twice. And dear old Harold Abrahams, who some of you may have remembered from the Chariots of Fire, came down to present the trophy. And this is delightful. But obviously, great work went on, a great deal of effort, and I must thank 4 successive headmasters for their support, and also many members of staff, because every Friday we had to produce rugby teams. Sometimes we only had 11 players in one team, and we'd go around scrambling around getting the players together. We'd get the coaches organised, get them out to play. People like Eddie getting the first 15 out, and others. Bob Hudson organising the coaches and the fixtures, Trevor Eames the same. Tremendous support from so many members of staff. Recently, the 250th anniversary is another highlight. And there, if you remember, there's an inscription. I have to get my Latin right, because obviously it's a long time since I did my A-level Latin. There's an inscription which says, "Si monumentum requiris circumspice." And what that means, for those of you who haven't had a classical education since Miss Bailey departed many years ago, if you require a monument, look around you. Now, I don't compare myself really with the great architects of Christopher, but his monument was only bricks and mortar. I would like to think that some of the 3,000 boys and girls, young men, young women, that I've been very fortunate to be in contact with over the years, and representative here tonight, are really the memorial that I would like to consider for the future. Finally, come back to the revolutionary theme. Obviously today is July the 14th, and I must depart before the tumbrel takes me off to the guillotine. I'd like to remind you of the famous words, the end of Tale of Two Cities by Sidney Carton. There's a far, far better thing that I do than I've ever done. At least, hopefully, it's a far, far better rest that I go to than I've ever done. Thank you, and au revoir. He's actually got something left over.
service received, one of the supply staff, who was a prosser, was able to actually make this plate for us. So there's a model Rainian on either side of, guess what, a basketball. So I'm going to leave this here before I'm taken away for you to have a look at, but it's a